With all the benefits the IoT can bring, it also poses significant threats to privacy. In this course, we'll start by outlining how IoT devices generate massive amounts of data that can pose a risk to our personal information. Then we'll review existing standards and regulations that protect privacy and discuss the need to provide laws that govern what companies do with our data. Finally, we'll describe methods to select and secure IoT devices. Hello, my name is Lisa Bach, and I'm a security ambassador. If you're ready to learn about the Internet of Things and what we need to do to ensure privacy when using our devices, then let's get started. Collecting and exchanging data. In this segment, we'll discover the components that make up the IoT. The Internet of Things has several elements that include devices, processes, data, infrastructure, and people. Let's talk about each of these, starting with the devices. IoT devices include a range of everyday objects, such as thermostats, wearable fitness trackers, home automation systems, and cameras. The devices collect and exchange data using nodes, sensors, and controllers. IoT operating systems are streamlined with minimal processing and memory and are designed to perform a specific task, such as monitoring temperature or recording video. Processes manage the way people, infrastructure, things, and data all work together. The logic is similar to an OODA loop, which is a cycle of observe, orient, decide, and act. For example, when a car crosses the middle lane on a highway, the sensor will send an audible alert to get back into the correct lane. IoT devices gather data from humans to machine, from machine to machine, or machine to humans through sensors. The data is then transmitted to a central gateway and then to the cloud, which can provide more advanced data processing. The IoT infrastructure is the underlying technology and systems that enables the operation of IoT devices and applications. The infrastructure includes hardware components, such as sensors, gateways, and servers, along with software components, such as operating systems, platforms, and cloud services. People are what drives the Internet of Things and includes consumers, businesses, and governments, which use the devices in their homes, cars, cities, and buildings. Today, the world is only beginning to see the value and potential impact of the Internet of Things in our everyday lives. By 2026, industry experts predict a market size of more than $1 trillion. This means a future where everyday things all interconnect with the goal of improving overall quality of life. The IoT is transforming and improving businesses in many ways. It's creating predictive supply chain management, improving customer satisfaction and employee productivity, providing innovation, along with more efficient asset utilization. In this segment, we'll discover how IoT devices are creating new types of opportunities and services for a broad range of industries. Let's talk about a few examples. Manufacturing is one of the leading segments in the IoT market. One reason is within manufacturing, industrial IoT is gaining popularity. When implemented correctly, industrial IoT has the ability to increase efficiency and aid in making data-driven decisions, which leads to more efficient inventory control and reduced operating costs. Healthcare also has a chunk of the IoT market. Facilities use IoT devices to monitor patients, enhance patient experience, and improve safety. Other industry players include retail. Businesses use IoT devices to assist with inventory tracking. Sensors monitor customer movement and conducts anonymous analytics of customer choices. In cities, the IoT can optimize waste management by monitoring trash cans and then notify garbage collectors only if the cans are full. Drivers can then adjust their route to reduce fuel consumption. In education, teachers use RFID chips in ID cards to track attendance. And IoT benefits collaborative learning by using handheld interactive devices to encourage participation and make review sessions a fun, game-like activity. The justice system leverages the IoT by providing wearable, embedded sensors to monitor and track location within the prison complex. And it utilizes security systems that include biometric locks. Whatever the business, there is value in the IoT which can make a significant impact by reducing the cost of products, prevent waste, delays, and accelerate product design. SCADA controls infrastructure and industrial processes. The IoT are devices that collect and exchange data. In this segment, we'll discover how the Industrial Internet of Things is a natural evolution to SCADA, as it provides many additional benefits. First, let's discuss how SCADA systems work. SCADA, or Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, is a centralized system that monitors and controls processes and machinery that is used in industrial settings. SCADA predates the Internet of Things by decades. It has multiple applications and runs behind the scenes in a variety of locations, such as production systems, refineries, and supermarkets. In manufacturing, systems control automation and robotics, manage inventory, and monitor processes for quality control. In buildings, SCADA controls HVAC, lighting, and entry systems. The Industrial Internet of Things is a term used to describe the use of IoT technology in rugged industrial environments. Industrial IoT devices can be used to collect data from a wide range of industrial equipment, including sensors, machines, and other devices. This data can then be analyzed in real time to optimize industrial processes, reduce downtime, and improve overall efficiency. Industrial Internet of Things offer many benefits as we move into a data-driven system with an emphasis on data integration and intelligence. Although both SCADA and Industrial IoT involve sensors and data acquisition, they differ in their scope, capabilities, and implementation. Let's talk about some of the differences. For scalability, SCADA uses a traditional centralized approach and is really limited in the ability to expand its capabilities. In contrast, the Industrial IoT is easily scaled and can grow with the demand. As far as data analytics, SCADA uses data on a day-to-day basis with minimal data retention. Industrial IoT retains data for longer periods of time and is better able to provide real-time data and insights into industrial processes, which improves operational efficiency. And integration is not easily achieved in SCADA systems because it commonly works in silos. However, industrial IoT devices can work with a wide range of hardware, software, and cloud-based platforms. Overall, the Industrial IoT has the potential to transform industrial processes by providing real-time data and insights, transform building automation. In this segment, we'll learn how Industrial IoT can automate functions, such as HVAC, refrigeration, and lighting, to improve efficiency and reduce expenses. Traditional building systems that provide and control functions, such as light, heat, air conditioning, and security, were standalone entities. New building construction and renovation will enable the opportunity to implement advanced sensors to control building functions, which can then translate into cost savings. Let's talk about a few examples. Large facilities benefit from water and plumbing sensors in many ways. Water is a resource. One location that could be monitored are restrooms within a facility. Unchecked restroom water loss can add up to hundreds, if not thousands of dollars annually. Sensors can monitor normal flow rates and detect water leaks quicker and reduce maintenance, save water, and reduce overall liability. The sensors can then generate data that can help implement conservation methods. Motion sensors help with automation for handling objects and forming applications. For example, motion sensors can detect when a package has reached a specific point in the production line. This can then trigger an automated action, such as stopping the conveyor belt or diverting the package to a different location, which can help streamline the production process. Many buildings must ensure air quality and rely on sensors for control management. Sensors placed in the air handlers monitor temperature and humidity to determine if the facility must condition the air. Sensor placement in rooms provide predictive automation, such as lowering blinds to cool the room, and turning off lights when occupants leave, or activating a security system. Level sensors monitor the level of liquids or other fluid-like materials. Sensors can monitor anything from liquid soap to solvent or caustic chemicals. The sensor can then send an alert when a predefined condition is met. Industrial IoT can also help with asset management. Using embedded RFID tags can track asset movements and monitor for theft. When implemented properly, building sensors will gather the data, which is then sent to a centralized management console, constantly launching attacks and attempting to exploit vulnerabilities, as shown here on this attack simulation website. In this segment, we'll discover how OWASP can help us learn about IoT vulnerabilities and attack surfaces. Let's start by visiting the OWASP website, where we can explore the many ways that the organization provides updates and continuous research on common vulnerabilities. In addition, they provide a wide range of resources to help us learn about security and privacy best practices. One of the resources is the IoT Top 10 list, which is a list of the most common IoT vulnerabilities. Now, this list is updated regularly based on the latest research, and it can help individuals and organizations prioritize their security efforts. So why is this important? Well, a vulnerable IoT device can lead to several devastating events. Attackers can use weak or default passwords to gain unauthorized access to IoT devices. This can then lead to a data breach that can result in severe consequences, including financial loss and/or legal liabilities. Malicious actors can use compromised IoT devices to launch a botnet attack, which can bring down a website or an entire network. Malicious actors use weak passwords to infect IoT devices with malware, which can then spread to other devices and systems on the network. IoT vendors and users should recognize common vulnerabilities and take steps to minimize the threat of an attack. Best practices include ensure that the IoT devices and systems are updated with the latest security patches and firmware updates. Implement strong authentication and authorization methods, including two-factor authentication when possible. Use encryption to protect data in transit and at rest. Properly configure the device and disable unnecessary services and protocols. And employ physical security measures, such as locking cabinets and secure mounting of IoT devices. Businesses and consumers with a wide range of benefits, from improved efficiency and cost savings to enhanced safety and quality of life. However, there are many challenges in securing IoT devices. In this segment, we'll see how IoT systems can suffer from glitches or bugs, which can result in devastating effects. An IoT device is simple, easy to configure and implement in your home or business. However, there are several security challenges, in that many IoT devices are not designed to be upgraded. They can have outdated firmware or not allow any modifications. In addition, IoT systems can suffer from glitches or bugs. An IoT glitch or bug is a disruption in the way the device behaves, in that the device might not work properly or shut down unexpectedly. There are errors in the operating system, flaws in the code, or even malware that can cause erratic behavior, which can result in smart homes or even smart cities failing. So let's talk about some of the challenges. One of the issues is that many devices use the same template. Therefore, if one type of device has vulnerabilities, most likely similar devices will have the same vulnerabilities that can fall victim to the same types of attacks. Because of the lack of standards, there are compatibility issues that prevent one device from working properly with another, or not being able to be secured in the same manner. Operating systems are commonly defenseless, and security patches and updates are not available on many IoT applications. Simple IoT devices have a long shelf life and may possibly outlive support for the device. And if a device is compromised in some way, the end user might not know that something has gone wrong. As a result, a security breach can last a long time without detection. Now, when dealing with bugs or glitches, the severity of failure due to these issues could range from mild to significant. For example, if your motion sensor detected garage door doesn't open or work because it's incompatible with your phone app, you may have to get out and manually open the door. However, if hundreds of IoT devices manage a water treatment plant and a software flaw prevents correct chemical combinations, it could result in poor water quality that could affect thousands of people. Now, today, many companies and consumers are rushing to adopt IoT devices. So prior to a major IoT implementation, there are a few best practice guidelines. You'll want to ensure the device is free from major flaws and has no compatibility issues. Make sure that it's able to support future technology and is able to blend in with the rest of the networked environment. Let's do a challenge. But first, a little background information. IoT devices are utilized in the medical field. Devices are to help improve patient care, reduce costs, and maintain a more comfortable environment. In this challenge, we'll explore the potential for an attack on connected IoT devices, which can be life-threatening. For this challenge, you'll read 2 articles. The links and the questions are in the challenge worksheet. You'll read this article, The Top 6 Hackable Medical IoT Devices. And then I want you to read this article on an alleged HVAC hack. Now, once you read the articles, you'll answer the following questions. From the first article, there are 4 questions. And for the second article, I want you to summarize 3 key issues. So pause the video, complete the challenge, and then return to see what my thoughts were on this challenge. This challenge should take you about 20 to 30 minutes. Good luck! Okay, let's check our work. You were to read this case study and then answer 4 questions. So the first question was, what are the 6 most hackable medical devices? Well, the article lists the following: infusion and insulin pumps, smart pens, implantable cardiac devices, wireless vital monitors, thermometers and temperature sensors, and security cameras. So the other question was, do you think that there are others? Well, most likely yes, as vendors are continuously manufacturing IoT devices to serve a specific function. Newer devices will most likely include several vulnerabilities as well. The next question was, what are the potential risks associated with infusion and insulin pumps? With those devices, malicious actors can exploit the connectivity feature of the drug delivery system. So how can a healthcare organization reduce the risk to ensure patient safety and data security? Well, the article linked to this site where we can learn more about NIST guidelines to secure wireless infusion pumps. And you can read more about it here. The next question was, what are some potential cyber threats against cardiac devices and wireless vital monitors? With these devices, a simple denial of service attack against a pacemaker has the potential to harm a patient. So what can patients and healthcare providers do to ensure the safety and security of these devices? Well, one method to mitigate the potential for an attack is to keep the devices updated with the latest security patches. And the last question from this case study was, what measures should be taken to ensure the security of IoT thermometers and temperature sensors? Well, they recommend that you document and inventory all deployed IoT devices, and then do frequent vulnerability scans along with firmware and software updates. Next, you were to read this case study and then summarize 3 key issues from the article. In this case study, a malicious actor claims to have hacked into HVAC vendor Systems and accessed clients, including Boston Children's Hospital. The malicious actor provided screenshots of schematics and wiring schemes captured within Systems and at the hospital. This then raised concerns about the ability to tamper with HVAC settings and or shut off alarm systems. The malicious A smart device is a relatively small expense, and manufacturers are rushing IoT products to market. In this segment, we'll learn that if we don't start addressing security issues, there's a huge potential for cyber attacks. I'm at this site that outlines concerns that consumer IoT devices can disrupt security. The reality is that when the concept of the Internet of Things was first developed, enterprise security requirements were not taken into consideration. However, the sudden shift to remote work that took place globally was also unforeseen. Today, the IoT industry is rapidly growing, and manufacturers continue to develop smart devices for business and consumers. As the IoT expands and more devices join, it will become easier to launch an attack. The threats from an attack on IoT devices are real and not only impact data, but also physical security, such as devices used in medical facilities and critical infrastructure applications. Before connecting objects like buildings, medical devices, cars, and homes to the IoT, manufacturers must address the many security challenges when dealing with the devices. Criminal organizations are investing a significant amount of money, time, and resources in gathering information on IoT devices. Malicious actors customize cyber attacks that are effective and target the most victims. Let's outline some of the issues with IoT devices. Several types of systems are mass-produced and are similar in their design, meaning one type of an attack can be replicated across all similar devices. Many times an IoT device is sold once and done, in that vendors do not support upgrading or patching the operating system. The devices are designed for low power and minimal memory, and really don't have resources for traditional security methods. Currently, there is malware protection available to prevent attacks, yet there are still challenges. Because of the widespread adoption of IoT devices, when developing devices, manufacturers should keep in mind the potential IoT vulnerabilities and take a moment to consider the consequences. Best practices to prevent attacks would include the following. Design for security. Embed firewall features to add an additional layer of defense. Provide encryption capabilities, and include tamper detection capabilities. If manufacturers don't build in security and thoroughly test their devices, IoT products and systems into their infrastructure and homes. But are they secure? In this segment, we'll learn why testing for vulnerabilities and hidden backdoors before implementation is essential. But first, let's talk about what makes something vulnerable. A vulnerability is a flaw in a system that a malicious actor can exploit in order to gain unauthorized access to an asset. When dealing with the IoT, the potential for cyber attacks along with compromising privacy is increasing due to gaping vulnerabilities with many different types of devices. Researchers have scanned the internet and found hundreds of thousands of vulnerable IoT devices, which can pose serious security risks. However, device manipulation started as early as 2010 with one of the first known car hacking events. I'm here at this site, where we learn how a disgruntled employee gained access to the web-based vehicle mobilization system with his username and password, and was able to disable the car's ignition system and make the horns beep. The threats to IoT devices have only escalated as we fast forward to today and learn how malicious actors on the dark web see the IoT as the next big hacking prize. But why are IoT devices so vulnerable? Well, when an architect begins to design a building, there's a set of codes and standards which they follow to provide safety for the client. However, IoT manufacturers are flying blind as there are no standards or common language. With the rapid expansion of the IoT, vendors and manufacturers have not even discovered the extent of the vulnerabilities. How can we build in security when we're not even sure of all the risks? Because of this, it's time to raise awareness and make security a priority by involving experts and trusted vendors. Developers are working on incorporating security modules that include user and password management, secure storage, along with anti-counterfeiting and authentication solutions. Education and awareness will encourage users and consumers to check to see what vulnerabilities the IoT device might have. Ethical hackers are also getting into the game, as many are starting to have some serious concerns about mission-critical applications that include public infrastructure, automobiles, and medical devices. But there is help. You can learn more about IoT device cybersecurity guidelines by visiting the site and get your free copy, which I did. I got a local download. And here you can see the document. This document will help you answer questions such as, would the IoT device introduce unacceptable risk to the organization or result in non-compliance with cybersecurity requirements? Does the IoT device have any known security and/or privacy vulnerabilities? When evaluating the use of IoT devices in a home or organization, consider security risk before deploying in places such as businesses, manufacturing, and healthcare. Now let's test your knowledge. Today, businesses and consumers are recognizing the value of integrating IoT products and systems into their infrastructure. Outline reasons why testing for vulnerabilities and hidden backdoors before implementation is essential. Because of gaping vulnerabilities. In this segment, we'll discover how vulnerable devices can lead to an attack. Recent testing indicated that 25% of IoT devices had weaknesses, And for each device, there were multiple exploitable flaws that were not limited to a single vendor or device. Although there were many, the main areas of concern included the following: outdated firmware, having default usernames and passwords, outward-facing, and exposure to the internet with no firewall protection. I'm here at this site where we can see in this article, and let me scroll down, where it describes how more than 150 IoT devices, including many that are used in the healthcare sector, are at an increased risk of an attack. When selecting an appropriate IoT device, keep in mind that each device is a doorway into your home. Consumers should require that vendors defend the device against commonly known attacks. Let's take a look. In this graphic, we see a list of top 10 IoT vulnerabilities. Now, over time, the list remains very much the same, but vendors should implement ways to defend a device against those common attacks that include weak, guessable, or hard-coded passwords, lack of secure update methods, lack of device management, and insecure default settings. In addition to securing and testing, many feel vendors should list the vulnerabilities they know exist on their devices as part of the purchase process. Most would agree that it's best to hold off on manufacturing these devices until we can ensure their safety. For example, let's take a look on this site on attack statistics. Now, if we scroll down, we can see the legend, and it's over here. We can see the more severe ones are going to be in red. So let's put in a few vendors. We'll put in Linksys. So that's not too bad. Well, let's try Netgear. Oh, there's a few more vulnerable devices out there. Let's try one more. We'll do D-Link. So D-Link has even more vulnerable devices out there. As a consumer, it's important to know that some devices are more insecure than others. Because so many IoT devices are so insecure, manufacturers and vendors must seek to include security in the design process. The following recommendations are to produce a secure IoT device. You'll want to ensure that the device is resistant to attacks, that it has access control, that it requires data authentication, and provides confidentiality. The Internet of Things may very well become a mandatory privilege. As a result, devices will need security standards, much like in the early days of wireless. Until then, it's essential for companies to design devices with security in mind. Now let's test your knowledge. In order to launch an attack on some IoT devices, no malware is needed. List a few IoT vulnerabilities that can lead to an attack. Botnets are active and have the potential to launch a DDoS attack. I'm here at spamhouse.com, where we can see all of the currently active botnets. In this segment, we'll learn how unsecured IoT devices can become a part of a botnet, with the ability to launch a DDoS attack that can cause major sites to malfunction. IoT devices lack basic security defenses and have many vulnerabilities that can lead to an attack. For example, weak or missing passwords can open the device to a malware infection. Additionally, several devices have a built-in backdoor so that the manufacturer can access the device remotely using default credentials. A backdoor isn't generally designed to be malicious, however, this could give others access to the device. The fact is that some of the very tools that are available to make IoT devices easy to access have come under attack. I want to talk about a real example of a massive DDoS attack using managed DNS as a weapon. In the fall of 2016, the EnemyBot attacked DNS and caused major outages throughout the country. Let's step through how this happened. One of the key elements in this attack was DNS, an application layer protocol which is essential to any network. DNS converts a host name to an IP address. DNS failures will prevent hosts from communicating or even locating each other. Now, when we talk about IP addresses, they can either be static, which stays the same, or dynamic, which changes. So, who uses what and why? Well, a business will generally register their domain name and obtain a permanent or static IP address. For example, Google.com will have an IP address of 172.217.7.206. In contrast, an average consumer will use a dynamic IP address. They'll obtain an IP address from their ISP that will change often, or at least every time they boot their router. So what if you want to host your own website on a personal server that is issued a dynamic IP address? or if you need to remotely access devices, for example, security cameras or home automation systems. In that case, you'll need to use a dynamic DNS service to keep track of your IP address. Dynamic DNS assigns a fixed domain name to a dynamic IP address and will update every time the ISP issues a new IP address to the consumer. DynDNS is a managed DNS service that provides critical technology services to some of the Internet's top destinations and became a target for the MalwareBot. The MalwareBot weaponized millions of IoT devices and launched a massive attack on Dyn's infrastructure, blocking legitimate users from obtaining IP addresses and slowing Internet traffic to a crawl. Even today, malicious actors continue to modify the code to extend their reach to infect other devices, as we see in this article. To prevent becoming a part of an IoT botnet, it's important to secure IoT devices by implementing strong passwords, regularly updating software and firmware, and isolating IoT devices from the rest of the network. Additionally, it's important to monitor network traffic for signs of suspicious activity and respond quickly to any potential threats. IoT devices have minimal security and many flaws, with minimal processing capabilities, a battery, and onboard storage. In this segment, we'll learn how a denial-of-sleep attack will slowly drain the battery, which can in turn render a normally active IoT device inactive. But first, let's talk about a specific type of IoT device, a sensor node. A sensor node is designed to collect data. Multiple sensor nodes create a wireless sensor network. A wireless sensor network is comprised of low-powered sensors that monitor processes, take measurements, gather data, and communicate to other devices and data repositories. Wireless sensor networks monitor everything from power line voltage, chemical concentrations, and oil and gas production. Basic elements in a sensor network include sensor nodes. Now, these are the wireless devices that have low power requirements, so there's no need to change the battery. The sensor nodes collect and communicate information. A gateway sensor node collects data from sensors and makes decisions based on the information gathered. And processing includes data mining, event triggers, and status requests. The use of wireless sensor networks continue to increase, but they are vulnerable to malicious attacks. Hackers can execute an attack via a network communication connection. One example of an attack on a wireless sensor network is called a denial-of-sleep attack. Now, how does this work? Well, wireless sensor networks have a small energy reserve used to power the node, and periodically it will place the node to sleep in order to extend the lifetime of the device. A wireless sensor network only has primitive defenses that are vulnerable to attack. This attack is essentially not allowing the nodes to go to sleep mode, and therefore draining their energy reserves, which is essentially a hardware attack. A denial-of-sleep attack is a serious attack, as it disables a device and prevents communication between devices. In a mission-critical infrastructure, the results could be devastating. For example, if a wireless sensor node that monitors equipment temperature were unable to send an alert about an increase in temperature, this could potentially cause a massive equipment failure. Companies should be aware of this type of attack and use authentication methods to defend against a denial-of-sleep attack. In this segment, we'll learn how an IoT worm can have devastating results. A malware attack can be very destructive. The results can be as simple as launching a pop-up, or more serious results, such as disabling antivirus or destroying files. Malware programs fall into one of 5 different classes. Rootkits provide a backdoor for illegal access to a host. Spyware records keystrokes and other activity and then sends it to a collection site. Trojans appear as a useful program, such as a game or utility, but it contains malware. Viruses can self-replicate, yet need a way to propagate to other hosts. And a worm is self-propagating malware that can spread on its own. So let's compare the difference between a virus and a worm. A virus must have a way to travel to another host, such as an email attachment. However, a worm has the ability to spread without any help from a transport agent. Now, this ability makes a worm more dangerous, as they can have a devastating effect on all hosts on the network. Many are unaware of a worm's replication until it consumes system resources, such as memory, processing, and bandwidth, and it can slow or even halt tasks. The Internet of Things includes any number of items that can be controlled and connected to the Internet, and that includes smart light bulbs. Researchers have developed a proof-of-concept worm which has the capacity to go through an entire city, affecting all of the lights and causing them to malfunction. The worm spreads by using the Zigbee protocol, which is used in low-power, wireless, machine-to-machine environments. In this case, the worm was able to spread because there was no authentication between the light bulbs. Now, although this is a proof of concept, this could result in serious malfunction, as worms that spread using the IoT are a powerful weapon. Now, this can cause a massive chain, infect devices, and then have more devastating results. Now, the results could include taking over the lights in a smart city, mine cryptocurrency, or even attack the electric grid. To reduce this threat, developers should build in authentication between devices so that only trusted devices can send and receive data. Use malware protection so the device is resistant to attacks. Let's do a challenge. In this challenge, we'll investigate EnemyBot, a distributed denial-of-service botnet. Now, first, I'll take you to this website. Now, you'll read this article. The link to this site and the questions are included in the challenge worksheet. Once you read it, there'll be a series of questions. Questions will include: what is EnemyBot and how does it infect devices? What types of commands does EnemyBot support? And what are the 3 common vulnerabilities targeted by EnemyBot? So pause the video, complete the challenge, and then come back and see what my thoughts were. This challenge should take you about 20 to 30 minutes. Good luck! Okay, now let's check our work. You were to read the article and then answer the questions. So first, what is EnemyBot and how does it infect devices? EnemyBot is a Mirai-based botnet malware that infects devices through vulnerabilities in modems, routers, and IoT devices. What makes mapping and taking down EnemyBot's command and control server challenging? Well, EnemyBot's command and control server convolutes or obscures information in string values, and it hides behind Tor nodes to help conceal its location. What types of commands does EnemyBot support? Well, EnemyBot supports various commands. Well, they're mostly related to DDoS attacks, such as a DNS attack, which will flood DNS servers with hard-coded queries, or an HTTP attack, which will flood the target with HTTP requests. Now, what commands indicate possible extortion commands that were targeting specific companies? Well, a few of the identified commands were ARK, which will perform an attack on the servers of the game ARK Survival Evolved, or OVH, which will flood OVH servers with custom UDP packets. Now, by launching a targeted DDoS attack, they could disrupt services and demand ransom payments in exchange for stopping the attacks. So what type of architecture does EnemyBot target? Well, EnemyBot will target a wide range of architectures. Now, this is critical for its spreading capabilities. But one of the types was ARM, which is used in IoT devices such as smart home appliances, sensors, and wearables. Now, what are the 3 common vulnerabilities targeted by EnemyBot? Well, the 3 common vulnerabilities are ones that deal specifically with routers and can be exploited by EnemyBot to infect devices and expand its botnet. But here you see the commonality, and yes, all 3 of these are critical vulnerabilities. So how can users prevent EnemyBot or other botnets from infecting their devices? Well, you should keep your software and firmware updated, change your default credentials, use strong passwords, enable network security features, and disable any unnecessary services. The many security and privacy consideration when using IoT devices. In this segment, we'll discover how proactive action from manufacturers, along with artificial intelligence, can help improve the security of IoT systems. IoT devices are designed to help improve our way of life. However, researchers have confirmed that many devices are inherently insecure. As a result, several countries are working on regulations and guidelines to secure IoT devices. This is in an effort to protect against cyber attacks. After consulting with stakeholders such as manufacturers, retailers, and cybersecurity specialists, several key aspects of IoT security were identified. One key fact is that device manufacturers are key in ensuring devices are secure, and they should protect the privacy and safety of the consumers. While some countries are issuing best practice guidelines, others have moved to creating laws to protect consumers from insecure devices. The guidelines outline what must be in place before selling an internet-connected IoT device. Some of the guidelines include: all IoT devices must have security updates, and manufacturers will need to identify when they will stop supporting updates. All devices should have the ability to be password protected. Manufacturers should have a division dedicated to allowing consumers to report vulnerabilities, and any discovered weaknesses should be resolved in a timely manner. In addition, manufacturers are improving AI-based security solutions that use machine learning algorithms to analyze patterns and identify anomalies. These next-generation systems can monitor network traffic, detect unusual behavior, and respond to security threats in real time more effectively than traditional security methods. This can be especially beneficial for industries such as manufacturing and healthcare, where the security of IoT systems is critical to ensure the safety and well-being of employees and consumers. Now let's take a look at some of the IoT vulnerabilities. I'm here at this website where you can explore some of the ways IoT devices can be attacked. Now once you get here, you can scroll down. And here's an animation of where you can place your cursor and it will show you, for example, a device and what could happen. Well, here's a smart toy. Now, what hackers can do if compromised? Well, they can spy on or interact with the child playing with the toy. Here's a smart refrigerator. Now, if hackers compromise this device, they can order as much grocery as possible or ruin the food by changing the temperature settings. Now, some are pushing for a labeling process that will help consumers gain some confidence before purchasing an IoT device. So we can take a look here, and I'll scroll down. And this can give you more information on the possible labels that might be attached to an IoT device. Now, while manufacturers are charged in securing IoT devices, this might not always happen. Consumers have to have some responsibility for ensuring the IoT device is secure. Prior to purchasing, do some research. But once you're confident, enjoy your IoT device. Now let's test your knowledge. Discuss how proactive action from manufacturers, along with artificial intelligence, can help improve the security of IoT systems. The number of IoT devices in our homes and offices continues to grow. In this segment, we'll learn how manufacturers are creating IoT security solutions, along with best practices to defend the network. For most of the early growth in the IoT, we didn't incorporate any traditional security methods, such as firewalls and intrusion detection systems. The belief was these tiny devices were not an attractive target, or they couldn't possibly be susceptible to an attack. We find the assumptions are incorrect, and we need more security methods. I'm here at barracuda.com, and I'll scroll down, where we can see that a large percentage of organizations are at risk of an attack on IoT devices. Now, this is a significant number, and there are a couple of reasons why many IoT devices are vulnerable. IoT devices are small, have minimal processing, and are not able to defend themselves. As a result, they're going to rely on external devices and appliances, such as firewalls and intrusion detection systems, that provide a layer of defense between the devices and the internet connection. So let's compare the two. Both firewalls and intrusion detection systems can be either a hardware or software-based tool that can monitor either a network or a host, but they work slightly different. A firewall controls incoming and outgoing traffic based on a set of rules that either permit or deny traffic. An intrusion detection system continuously monitors for unusual or suspicious activity. Some IoT security devices have firewall and intrusion detection system features on one device. They can then monitor for many of the IoT threats that include malware, DDoS attacks, and unauthorized network access. If a device detects any unusual or suspicious behavior, it can then take some action, such as blocking access to the device or sending an alert to your phone. In addition to implementing specialized devices, it's important to regularly scan for open ports and ensure that only the necessary ports are open and that they are properly secured. Although there are a number of different tools that you can use, I'll take you to this site, an open port checker that you can use to check your external IP address and identify any open ports that are visible to the internet. You can put your address in here and then run a check. Now, this can help you identify potential security risks that could be exploited by malicious actors. Now, why is this important? Well, for example, the Mirai botnet scans the internet looking for open telnet servers running on either port 23 or port 2323. And I'm here at this site where you can read more about the Mirai bot. And here we can see a list of common ports to check when testing your network. Other best practices include segment the network, and don't allow anyone to have physical access to your device, and have a solid password management tool to In this segment, we'll learn why it's essential for companies to design devices with security in mind. As we see in this graphic, commercial and consumer IoT implementations have started to be able to prevent malicious activity. In the commercial space, there are some options to detect and respond. However, there are rare options to detect and respond in consumer devices, leading to a white space in IoT security for consumers. IoT devices have a number of different challenges that manufacturers must address before connecting objects like buildings, wearables, cars, and homes to the IoT. When developing devices, manufacturers should keep in mind the potential IoT vulnerabilities and take a moment and consider the consequences if the device is not thoroughly tested. Because depending on where the device is used, a breach can expose sensitive data. So when developing products for the IoT, it's always good practice to design with the CIA triad in mind. CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and is a fundamental concept in cybersecurity. So when in use, the device should provide confidentiality, in that the data should not be accessible to anyone without appropriate permissions. Integrity, in that the code should be stable and not mutatable to anyone without appropriate permissions. And availability, in that the device should be available to anyone with appropriate permissions. The Federal Trade Commission is concerned that IoT devices are putting consumers at risk. This document contains information that includes best practice guidelines, such as use recognized security practices, authenticate and control access, and implement secure data management. Following these guidelines will help protect IoT devices from malicious actors. Now let's test your knowledge. Manufacturers continue to develop devices to join the Internet of Things. Outline why it's essential for companies to design devices with security in mind. The average user has little or no understanding of the technology. In this segment, we'll discover how education and awareness can be an important first step in securing the IoT. Important technologies and standards are all necessary in order to provide end-to-end security and privacy on the Internet of Things. Those include firewalls, intrusion detection systems, anti-malware, and blockchains. However, just as important is user education and awareness. As the devices become more and more commonplace, they'll all begin to blend into the background, where we will all essentially forget about them. In addition to the fact that you forgot that you had the device, you'll probably forget that it's possibly insecure. We need to change the mindset of the consumer because in many ways they don't care about the security of the devices. They simply want the convenience. But what's more important, functionality or security? Well, there are some best practices. Research before purchasing an IoT device. Many devices are inexpensive, readily available, convenient, and fun to use. We don't always take a lot of time to learn about the privacy and security threats. Research to see if others have had security problems and if the device can be hacked. Now, it's difficult to keep up with new technology and understand how it fits into our world, but protect your IoT device the same way you protect your home computers, smartphones, and tablets. Read the manuals for instructions on how to lock down the device. Understand what information your device collects. Ask questions on what happens to the data collected and what possible security threats exist. We know that a weak or missing password can introduce a great number of threats to these tiny devices. So change the default password on the device and use a strong password. Along with user education, industry will need to adjust to this changing paradigm by developing new jobs to deal with the many devices on the IoT. including IoT security analyst, integration developer, and chief Internet of Things officer. As we move into a completely new world, there will be growing pains. However, we can all make a difference. Now let's test your knowledge. Outline how public awareness can be an important first step in securing the IoT. Boost productivity and improve efficiency in our homes and businesses. In this segment, we'll learn how IoT devices can transform the way we work, live, and play. Researchers have discovered approximately half of all consumers have purchased at least one smart device, and 70% plan to buy an in-home IoT product within the next few years. Manufacturers are rushing to create IoT devices, including wearable tech, luggage, and even devices for our pets. The massive deployment of all IoT products evolved simply because people started to ask, can we? And the answer is yes. Yes, we can. I'm here at this website that outlines the top 10 IoT announcements at the 2023 Consumer Electronics Show. I'll scroll down, where we can take a look at this chart, and here we can see some of the most popular IoT implementations. Leading the trend is smart homes, with devices created with the goal of a more streamlined home that is easier to manage. However, we also see IoT devices in healthcare, wearables, energy, and utilities. Billions of devices and sensors on the Internet of Things rarely sleep and are constantly gathering zettabytes of digital information. The tidal wave of data dumped into storage repositories offers both challenges and opportunities. IoT data can enable companies to have a competitive advantage and create new opportunities. The key is to harness the data, analyze boost productivity and improve efficiency in our homes and businesses. In this segment, we'll learn how IoT devices can transform the way we work, live, and play. Researchers have discovered approximately half of all consumers have purchased at least one smart device, and 70% plan to buy an in-home IoT product within the next few years. Manufacturers are rushing to create IoT devices, including wearable tech, luggage, and even devices for our pets. The massive deployment of all IoT products evolved simply because people started to ask, can we? And the answer is yes. Yes, we can. I'm here at this website that outlines the top 10 IoT announcements at the 2023 Consumer Electronics Show. I'll scroll down, where we can take a look at this chart, and here we can see some of the most popular IoT implementations. Leading the trend is smart homes, with devices created with the goal of a more streamlined home that is easier to manage. However, we also see IoT devices in healthcare, wearables, energy, and utilities. Billions of devices and sensors on the Internet of Things rarely sleep and are constantly gathering zettabytes of digital information. The tidal wave of data dumped into storage repositories offers both challenges and opportunities. IoT data can enable companies to have a competitive including free from being watched or disturbed, or protecting information you don't want others to know, such as personal information. In this segment, we'll see how the massive amounts of IoT devices pervasively collecting data can ultimately affect our privacy. In today's society, there seems to be so much online that personal privacy is fading away. For example, many people enjoy sharing information via social media. This type of sharing is voluntary and ranges from significant life events to trivial details about a visit to a restaurant. However, several social media platforms will remind us that we may want to enforce privacy settings. For example, we might see the following. Lisa, you recently shared a post to public. We want to make sure you know you can choose a different audience for every post. To learn how, check out Privacy Basics. Many of us are aware of possible exposure, so we don't post any personal information about ourselves, our family, or company business. Many of us even disable geotagging on our cell phone. In contrast to voluntarily sharing personal information, law enforcement agencies use surveillance when they suspect criminal activity or in public places. However, for the average consumer, protecting privacy in the home is almost a given. And in the U.S., the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution ensures a right to privacy. It states the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. In a general sense of traditional e-commerce and business transactions, privacy includes control over the information companies collect, how they store the data, and how they interpret the data. The reality is that every day, more and more IoT devices are collecting massive amounts of data without our knowledge, and this data can fall into the wrong hands, affecting our privacy. Consumers are beginning to have concerns. In addition, companies are worried about a serious breach with IoT devices. Both consumers and businesses lose when there is a violation of privacy. Businesses can lose sales, have increased legal costs, and lose investor confidence. Consumers face equally as serious risks, as they might face telemarketing, junk mail, spam, and identity theft. Billions of smart devices make up the Internet of Things. From RFID tags to refrigerators, they are talking to us and to each other. Let's do a challenge. In this challenge, you'll go to this website, where we can see a list of the top 10 IoT vulnerabilities. These come directly from the OWASP Top 10 list. Now we'll scroll down and it gives you a little bit of discussion on those top 10. But you could also go right to the source, to the OWASP Internet of Things project. Now I went to this section here and I selected the infographic and I opened it up. And that's another way to visualize the top 10 vulnerabilities. Now, once you've read the article, I want you to answer the following questions. Now, we know that there is a top 10 list, but I want you to list and explain the top 5, and then answer, could these be avoided? Okay, now let's check our work. First, we'll talk about the top 5 IoT vulnerabilities. Number 1 is weak, guessable, or hard-coded passwords. These are common. Many IoT devices have passwords that are easily brute-forced, publicly available, or have credentials that cannot be changed. Number 2, unneeded or insecure network services running on an internet-facing device. This can compromise the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of information, or allow unauthorized remote access. Number 3, insecure ecosystem interfaces outside of the device. Now, this can compromise the device or related components. Common vulnerabilities include a lack of authentication methods, missing or weak encryption, and no firewall protection. Number 4, lack of secure update methods. This is common with IoT devices. Issues include lack of firmware validation on a device, updates sent in plain text, missing anti-rollback features, and lack of notification on security changes due to updates. And number 5, the use of insecure or outdated components, such as deprecated or insecure software, that could allow the devices to be compromised. This includes insecure customization of operating system platforms and the use of third-party software or hardware components from a compromised supply chain. So now let's talk about whether or not these could be avoided, and discuss ways we can use this information when purchasing an IoT device. Well, the answer is yes, they can be avoided. Some of the ways to make IoT devices more secure will start with the manufacturers and product developers. You'll want to check the reputation of the company prior to purchase. Make sure you read the reviews. Learn what the manufacturers did to ensure that the device is more secure. For example, does the IoT device have security updates? And does the manufacturer In this segment, we'll learn how, unless regulated, businesses can use IoT data to make decisions on issues that could impact your life or livelihood. The potential of massive surveillance comes with the overall awareness that our lives are being followed everywhere. Law enforcement commonly place cameras throughout cities that are capable of tracking our every move. Experts argue that surveillance is necessary in order to provide better planning, more efficient energy use, and improve parking. However, in some cases, it's hard to separate what device is helpful and what may cause a risk to security and privacy. So let's talk about how this could be possible. IoT devices range from fitness trackers to cars and medical devices. Every day, the sensors on the devices collect what we do, where we drive, what we purchase, even activity in our homes. In some cases, the devices are programmed to respond to certain events. For example, when driving, if we're speeding or miss a stoplight, sensors can collect that information and then send it somewhere. In addition, the data on a device itself could be subject to admission in court. For example, could the courts call the data on your Fitbit into evidence? They might ask the question, was your heart beating faster because you were exercising, or were you doing something illegal? The question is, who owns all the collected data? Does the data belong to you or to the manufacturer? Does any of the data transfer to somewhere else? In some cases, it does. For example, in many modern cars, data is continuously collected. This is because legislation in several countries requires mandatory installation of a black box tracking device in all vehicles, which can record all activity and can be of assistance in case of an accident. For example, if a collision is detected, the device sends the data to emergency services to allow quicker deployment of help. In most cases, no one can expose the data unless there is the owner's written consent. Now, that is the data on the black box. But what about the data that is in the cloud? The end goal of most IoT devices in many cases is to simply collect data. Can we and will we draw the line on gathering data and invasion of privacy? For example, imagine if you were denied healthcare insurance because you had too many sugary sweets, or denied auto insurance because your car reported that you exceeded the speed limit one too many times. The fact is, the IoT collects a lot of data. By 2025, total data volume of connected IoT devices worldwide is forecast to reach 80 zettabytes. And that's a lot of data. A rough comparison is that 1 kilobyte is the size of a house cat, and a zettabyte is the size of America. So, who is collecting the data? Agencies such as the NSA in the US and other organizations gather and analyze collect data, and phone home. In this segment, we'll cover ways devices can potentially compromise our privacy. Several types of inexpensive IoT devices, such as cameras, smart locks, and wearable tech, are available on many websites. However, they can be vulnerable in several areas. For example, the device can have unprotected data on the internal memory without any encryption, PIN, or password. This can make it possible for someone to simply gather the information once they have access to the device. In addition, someone might be able to gain control and have remote access to the device, which can potentially compromise the privacy and safety of individuals. Let's talk about some of the concerns in the different types of IoT devices. Smartwatches are very popular. However, there is another level of concern, as smartwatches can send and receive data and even control when your phone takes pictures. If someone were to walk into a sensitive area, they could set the phone down and take pictures without anyone knowing. IoT devices can share data with third-party services, such as cloud storage or advertising providers, without the user's knowledge or consent. This can result in a loss of control over personal data and result in targeted advertising or spear phishing attacks. Smart home systems respond to commands while collecting and storing data. This can be used to monitor individuals' movements, habits, and routines. And it can be used in a malicious manner. For example, I'm here at this site, where we can learn more about how Amazon's Ring cameras were reported to be spying on its customers. And some devices, such as streaming servers, can live stream activity to internet-enabled devices and are open and visible to the public. In some cases, by searching, we're able to view what is shown on the camera. We can do this using Shodan, the world's search engine for internet-connected devices. Let's take a look. Right here, we're going to put in listening, can take pictures, collect data, and phone home. In this segment, we'll cover ways devices can potentially compromise our privacy. Several types of inexpensive IoT devices, such as cameras, smart locks, and wearable tech, are available on many websites. However, they can be vulnerable in several areas. For example, the device can have unprotected data on the internal memory without any encryption, PIN, or password. This can make it possible for someone to simply gather the information once they have access to the device. In addition, someone might be able to gain control and have remote access to the device, which can potentially compromise the privacy and safety of individuals. Let's talk about some of the concerns in the different types of IoT devices. Smartwatches are very popular. However, there is another level of concern, as smartwatches can send and receive data and even control when your phone takes pictures. If someone were to walk into a sensitive area, they could set the phone down and take pictures without anyone knowing. IoT devices can share data with third-party services, such as cloud storage or advertising providers, without the user's knowledge or consent. This can result in a loss of control over personal data and result in targeted advertising or spear phishing attacks. Smart home systems respond to commands while collecting and storing data. This can be used to monitor individuals' movements, habits, and routines. And it can be used in a malicious manner. For example, I'm here at this site, where we can learn more about how Amazon's Ring cameras were reported to be spying on its customers. And some devices, such as streaming servers, can live stream activity to internet-enabled devices and are open and visible to the public. In some cases, by searching, we're able to view what is shown on the camera. We can do this using Shodan, the world's search engine for internet-connected devices. Let's take a look. Right here, we're going to activate autonomously. In this segment, we'll learn how governments are investigating security requirements to address the huge gap in IoT security. IoT devices have built-in functions, such as a microphone, a camera, and night vision, and are the eyes and ears of the world. Through controllers and cloud processing, we now give these tiny devices the ability to think and act on their own. Many devices, once booted, immediately phone home without any prompts from the user, and then eavesdrop and collect data. And they may not turn off when prompted. Many times, consumers are unaware of this behavior. This could happen by design, or there could be a malicious actor remotely controlling the device. Everything from kitchen products, children's toys, cars, and surveillance products are collecting information. When you purchase a device and plug it in, you may not even be aware that your device is transmitting data. In fact, many have a built-in 5G connection and won't even need to access your Wi-Fi network at home to send and receive data. Many IoT devices have built-in voice recognition software, are always listening, and will wake upon hearing a sound. The concern is that they are listening not only to our voice, but other noises that it hears. Although this is not actually an attack, it is definitely concerning in that a device can pick up an extraneous command and execute it, and this could have serious implications. For example, the TV might say, "Disable the alarm system," and the alarm system may react as if it feels it's a command. Secure IoT design involves providing data integrity, identity and trust management, and privacy. However, in some cases, the consumer is unable to protect their device because they cannot change the username and password as the vendor hard-codes it into the firmware. Governments are investigating security requirements as they have recognized that devices have little or no security. Proposals include a labeling practice that will identify that the device is approved and secure, and could provide a way for consumers to make educated decisions on device selection. Some ways to address the huge gap in IoT security and privacy include ways to guarantee confidentiality by providing encrypted communication streams, ensure integrity by providing encrypted data storage and use integrity checking software, provide authentication methods so that devices communicate only with known and trusted entities. Governments for surveillance is a complex and controversial issue. In this segment, we'll explore how governments and law enforcement might use IoT devices, with or without knowledge of the consumer. George Orwell wrote 1984, a story that depicts a time when Big Brother watches everything. In January 2017, this classic book appeared on the New York Times bestseller list, which may have been in response to news of the CIA hacking into smart devices to eavesdrop on private conversations. Around that time, WikiLeaks had reported that the CIA had a project named Weeping Angel that worked on certain internet-connected models of Samsung TVs. Let's talk about how this works. By using a fake off mode, the TV may appear that it is off, but the power continues to run so that the TV can continue to collect audio and video of anything in the room. One indication that your device has been hacked is that there is a blue LED light in the back of the set that remains lit. To truly know that you're not being watched or listened to, experts suggest to simply unplug your device. The Samsung privacy policy lists what type of information they collect and how they share the information. I'll scroll down where we see information sharing. And here we see that law enforcement is listed first. In George Orwell's 1984 book, it implied that there is no way to tell that someone is watching or listening to you at any given moment. I'll read this line. Any sound that Winston made above the level of a very low whisper would be picked up by it. Moreover, so long as he remained within the field of vision which the metal plaque commanded, he could be seen as well as heard. Using IoT devices by governments for surveillance varies and will depend on the country we'll discuss growing privacy concerns as AI-driven IoT devices become more ubiquitous and interconnected. As the integration of IoT and AI becomes more prevalent, it will be important to ensure that the appropriate safeguards are in place to protect individuals' privacy and basic rights. Let's discuss some of the key concerns when dealing with these developing technologies. One concern is that there is an expanded attack surface. As more and more devices are connecting to our networks and infrastructure, there is a greater risk of a cyber attack that can expose sensitive data. Another issue is how devices can exhibit autonomous behavior. IoT devices that integrate with AI systems can be programmed to make decisions on their own. However, some systems have complete autonomy, which can lead to unpredictable behavior. We also need to be aware of devices collecting and sharing data. AI-driven IoT devices collect vast amounts of information, such as location, habits, and behavioral data, which can be used to build a detailed profile for targeting advertising or spear phishing. And if the data in the AI-driven IoT system contains biases or discrimination, this can lead to faulty decision-making in areas such as housing, credit, insurance, and employment. And finally, there is a concern of evolving regulations, and that is because laws regarding IoT privacy are struggling to keep pace. PCI DSS is a set of widely accepted requirements to secure credit card transactions. In this segment, we'll learn how PCI DSS applies when using IoT devices. PCI DSS is not a law or government regulation. It was developed by the credit card industry to help organizations that deal with credit cards to reduce the risk of possible exposure and fraud. However, if you do deal with any credit card transactions, you must be in compliance. Otherwise, a company will face hefty fines and may lose the ability to process credit card payments. PCI DSS requirements include best practices for management policy, network security, along with handling transactions and cardholder data. PCI DSS also has strict requirements for data storage, including encryption of stored data and limited retention periods. To begin processing credit cards, the first step is to identify what type of merchant the company is and how many transactions they do on a yearly basis. The merchant is then ranked from level 1 to 4, and each level will determine how aggressive audits and scanning take place. Now that we understand the concept of PCI DSS, let's talk about the use of IoT devices in e-commerce, banking, and fintech, as IoT devices in these areas are becoming increasingly common. The bottom line is if an IoT device is involved in handling credit card data in any way, it must adhere to the same PCI DSS requirements as other components of the cardholder environment. The primary objective is to protect cardholder data. Some of the requirements when dealing with IoT devices include the following. You must control access to IoT devices to only those individuals and processes whose job requires direct access. Furthermore, access to network resources and cardholder data should be tracked and monitored. You need to provide secure transmission of data. IoT devices that handle cardholder data must encrypt data during transmission to prevent unauthorized interception of cardholder data. It's essential to regularly test for governs data privacy and security practices that safeguard patient medical information. In this segment, we'll outline the many privacy concerns when dealing with IoT devices in a healthcare environment. The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, deals with making sure organizations or covered entities provide security and privacy of all electronic protected health information. All covered entities or anyone that deals with healthcare information must maintain the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information, abide by the standards, and maintain continuous, reasonable, and appropriate security precautions. HIPAA has several guidelines that require organizations to identify and protect against any anticipated threats to data security. Guidelines include: the organization must implement appropriate security measures to address and reduce overall risk. Ensure workforce compliance by providing training for all individuals in the organization. Conduct periodic risk analysis to ensure they are in compliance and in line with security policies and processes. Enforce access control, in that access to data should only be the minimum necessary to complete a job or task. And use physical safeguards that include facility access control along with workstation and device security. As U.S. medical facilities continue to adopt IoT devices and technologies, they must ensure compliance with HIPAA regulations to protect patient privacy and security. The concerns are real, as we see in this article that covers security risks when dealing with IoT devices. Some of the issues include the devices connect to many different networks and are always collecting data. The devices must have technology began its dramatic rise, standards, regulations, and guidelines such as PCI DSS and HIPAA have reduced the amount of data exposure. In this segment, we'll outline how regulations can provide specific guidelines on various forms of IoT privacy and security. With the rapid development of the Internet of Things and all the data devices generate, we enter a new paradigm. Several agencies and governing bodies are already providing specific recommendations on privacy and security. Let's talk about a few examples. In the U.S., the Developing Innovation and Growing the Internet of Things, or DIGIT Act, helps provide structure and guidance to ensure that IoT systems are protected from unauthorized access and data theft. And you can read more about this legislation here. Additionally, if we go to the Federal Trade Commission page on privacy and security, we see that they have listed a number of different topics. I'll scroll down and select Tech. And I'll open it in a new tab. And then I'll scroll down and select Careful Connections, keeping the Internet of Things secure, where you can view advice on how to build security into products connected to the Internet. Moving forward, let's outline some of the principles that will define the way businesses and organizations handle IoT data as additional laws and guidelines are created. But first, we'll want to ensure data integrity. IoT data should be accurate, timely, and reliable for it to be useful to an organization. We'll want to have transparency in how IoT devices operate, collect, and use data. We must enforce accountability to help detect and prevent issues by implementing controls and procedures to ensure responsible use of IoT technology for the data it produces. And we must enact stringent security measures, which can help protect against data breach. Designed to provide a best practice framework for secure infrastructure. In this segment, we'll learn how COBIT can help navigate the challenge of safely and securely integrating IoT devices into an organization. Due to the dynamic nature of the IT environment, businesses and industry leaders constantly face the challenge of managing and governing a complex information technology infrastructure. Over the past few decades, organizational data has increased significantly. By utilizing COBIT, companies can effectively safeguard the privacy and security of company-specific data, such as trade secrets and personal information, to ensure value for its stakeholders. Both IT and business will need to work together to improve business processes. COBIT helps to provide direction in the area of innovation and emerging technologies. And another important concept is that the framework stresses the importance of managing a solid life cycle by separating governance and management activities. Here in this graphic, we can see how the two each have their own set of objectives. COBIT can provide guidance to help mitigate potential threats posed by IoT devices, such as data breaches or unauthorized access. Using the framework to manage the lifecycle when deploying IoT devices can help define policies and procedures, ensure proper access controls, and monitor data integrity. COBIT divides the framework into 4 domains that include plan and organize, acquire and implement, deliver and support, and monitor and evaluate. Now that we have a basic understanding of what COBIT can do, let's visit the website. Now, once here, we can learn more about the guidelines in the framework that help security professionals effectively manage and protect their information. I'll scroll down where we can see a link to a toolkit, where you can download and view the worksheets. I opened the workbook on governance and management objectives and went to the Activities tab, where we can see activities for governance and management. And here we have starting at governance, but there is a need to provide security regulations that ensure IoT data privacy. In this segment, we'll outline why manufacturers and governments must come together to create a more secure IoT. If we look at this detailed infographic, it gives us a pretty good understanding of the complexity of the Internet of Things. The IoT is found in cities, homes, transportation, factories, and mobile devices. As the IoT evolves, several groups see the value of creating security standards to decrease vulnerabilities and lock down the devices. Providing security methods for IoT devices is more challenging than traditional network security, mainly because of the lack of standards, protocols, and a common language. The IoT industry is still evolving. Achieving the goal of security won't be easy or without challenges. For example, think about the early days of wireless communication. Initially, Wi-Fi did not have security. Then in 1999, we began using Wired Equivalency Privacy, or WEP, an encryption algorithm for wireless communication, with the intention that it would be as secure as a wired network. However, WEP had a flaw in the way that it encrypted data. It used the RC4 algorithm, which turned out to be weak and susceptible to attacks. Hackers discovered this vulnerability and found that they could quickly crack a WEP data stream and eavesdrop on any communication. Because of these security issues, WEP was no longer considered safe to use for wireless communications. WEP was replaced by more secure encryption methods, such as WPA and WPA2. And because of this early development, wireless communication is secure. Today, we must deal with the ever-changing landscape of the IoT. Many feel government should set higher standards for IoT devices that have access to critical data, perform essential functions, or can cause grave or serious damage if compromised. Regulations will force manufacturers and vendors to make security a priority and provide guidelines will outline current and proposed legislation that outlines best practice guidelines on collecting and protecting IoT data. Industry and governments are actively discussing the IoT, as they recognize the many benefits for homes, cars, manufacturing, and agricultural operations. Along with the benefits, there is a responsibility of protecting consumer data. First, let's talk about concerns when collecting IoT data. For many years, companies that collect consumer information know they must do so in a responsible manner. In most cases, they'll present a privacy policy on what data they collect and how they use the information. A business can easily create a privacy policy as there are many resources available. For example, they can use this free privacy policy template found here. However, there isn't a standard privacy policy for the IoT, and you might not see one when you launch an IoT device. Vendors are recognizing the need to provide a privacy policy as part of responsible product development. The reality is, in most cases, it's legally required to do so, as outlined here in this article. And if you're unsure on how to go about creating a policy, they've also included a privacy policy generator for your business website and mobile app, as shown here. Anyone that develops IoT devices must address the privacy issues during the design phase. Some recommendations for collecting consumer data include: use only the minimum amount of data required for the task, and keep the data only for as long as necessary. Now let's talk about protecting IoT data. One thing manufacturers need to incorporate are ways to keep unauthorized users from accessing a consumer device or personal information. Currently, many devices talk with each other and with us without any way to determine authentication. Vendors could provide a way to ensure authentication before communicating with a device by using methods such as a password, PIN, or one-time code. Using authentication will add another layer of security. For example, here we see a hospital robot on the left and a vendor on the right trying to update the robot's operating system. The authentication process might go as follows. Hi Bob, I need to update your operating system, and I'll send my authorization code. Okay, great, here's my authorization code. When both have agreed that they're talking to the correct entity, the vendor can now securely send the updates to the robot. More and more legislation is being brought about to force manufacturers to secure their devices. For example, the UK has an IoT product security regime that outlines requirements that will be in effect April 2024. And I'll scroll down, and I selected this document. And I opened it in a new tab. Now it's pretty detailed, but I'll go to page 4 where it specifies password. On the IoT has experienced rapid growth. In this segment, we'll learn how ongoing concerns about data security and privacy has led to the expanded role of NIST and OWASP in securing the IoT. First, let's talk about NIST. NIST is influential in supporting science, standards, and technology that enhances and improves our quality of life. So first, we'll go out to their website, where we can learn more about their efforts and research in the IoT. NIST has a cybersecurity program for the IoT, and the program has several focus areas to encourage and promote secure growth in the IoT market. NIST provides research and guidance to manufacturers, federal agencies, and consumers. I'll open each of these in a new tab. We'll start with guidance for manufacturers and other parties. This references the NIST Internal Report 8259 series. The series provides guidance on topics such as device identification, configuration, and data protection. Next, we'll take a look at the Special Publication 800-213 series, which provides guidance for U.S. federal agencies on safely and securely deploying IoT devices. And the last topic is on ways to improve consumer IoT security. Once there, I selected the draft baseline security criteria for consumer IoT devices. And I opened it in a new tab. Now, this white paper lists criteria for labeling, and I want to go to page 8, where we see detailed information on data protection and access control. Another organization involved in the IoT is the Open Web Application Security Project, or OWASP. OWASP is an open community with the goal of improving software security. And we'll go to their main page. Once there, we see that everyone is encouraged to join and participate. There are many resources available. OWASP also has an Internet of Things project, and we'll go to that page. Now, this project is to help anyone involved in IoT development, including manufacturers, consumers, and developers, understand all the issues associated with the IoT. Now, this project provides information on a number of different topics. Several protocols exist that provide different functions. In this segment, we'll review some of the IoT protocols used for discovery, identification, and infrastructure control. Developers early on felt that low-powered IoT devices with limited processing capabilities had to be able to communicate with other devices. We know that TCP/IP is instrumental in moving data through networks and the internet, but we also need other protocols to move IoT data within a constrained network. It's essential to have a basic understanding of IoT protocols when planning IoT initiatives within your organization. Your knowledge can help you make informed decisions and ensure security and compatibility. So let's talk about some of the general protocols that drive the IoT. IP version 6 is a building block for devices to be able to communicate. It allows addressing, routing, and global internet connectivity to be a reality. 6LoWPAN is an abbreviation for IP version 6 and low-powered wireless personal area networks. This allows for even the tiniest devices with limited processing the ability to transmit information wirelessly using IP version 6. And multicast DNS simplifies network service discovery and facilitates communication between devices in a local network. It uses multicast requests instead of a traditional DNS infrastructure. Many times when dealing with the IoT, we are using a constrained device. Now, these are small devices with limited processing, memory, and power resources, and they include sensors and smart devices that ensure industrial control and home automation. The devices might be involved in gathering information and sending it to a remote location for processing, or they might act on the information by completing some physical act. Many IoT devices work in a constrained network, such as a wireless sensor network. Now, this type of network is different than a traditional network, such as a local area network, in that it has limitations on resources and unpredictable bandwidth. So now let's discuss some of the protocols that work with constrained devices and networks. We'll start with Zigbee. Zigbee is owned and controlled by a consortium and is built on the IEEE 802.15.4 standard. Developers use Zigbee in personal or home area networks, or in a wireless mesh for long-range networks. MQTT, or Message Queuing Telemetry Transport, is a simple and lightweight messaging protocol. MQTT can operate in an unreliable network and is all devices can interact with one another. In this segment, we'll discuss the importance of developing standard protocols for the IoT and the role of the Open Connectivity Foundation. Smart home IoT devices are everywhere and perform many functions, such as opening doors, turning on lights, and notifying us if we need milk. Unless devices use a standard protocol, they probably won't be able to work together. Having a common language so that all devices can communicate is crucial in the development of the IoT. Let's talk about why this is important. In the early days of computer networking, several protocols were used that included X.25, AppleTalk, and IPX-SPX. The problem was similar to what we face today with the IoT, in that even if the devices were on the same network, they couldn't communicate with other devices that didn't speak their language. Then in 1983, TCP/IP was standardized and became the Internet Suite. TCP/IP provides the ability for all devices to communicate with one another and move data through networks. Communication between IoT systems is also very important. Smart home devices can speak one of many different languages developed for the IoT, such as Bluetooth, Zigbee, Z-Wave, and Wi-Fi. Some devices can communicate with other devices and manufacturers. However, currently, there is no universal language for the Internet of Things. Developers are excited about the different ways IoT devices can interact. For example, controlling your TV and vacuum cleaner from a single command on either your phone or PC. A number of leading companies are anxious to define standards for those different devices and come up with a certification process, as the goal is to get IoT products on the market. Because of the many vendors, standardizing IoT devices has been a challenge. However, IoT standardization is underway, with significant progress towards a common language. One organization that is promoting standards for the IoT is the Open Connectivity Foundation. I'm here at the homepage. The OCF is a global organization that helps bring together many major vendors that work towards a single framework that will allow current IoT devices to operate with legacy systems. The foundation provides information, news, events, and resources to businesses, consumers, and developers. The goal is to provide secure and reliable device discovery and connectivity across multiple operating systems and platforms. We'll learn how businesses can provide assurance that consumer IoT data will remain in its original form and be available only to someone with appropriate permissions. As consumers, we know that the IoT device we just purchased will most likely be storing our sensitive information. In addition, it may be transferring data to other devices or to the cloud. We need to ensure that the device is authentic and that we can trust it to protect our data. When faced with the prospect of all these things collecting massive amounts of data, there comes with it concerns that the IoT will affect our own collective privacy and security. Let's talk about how this is possible. Companies have specific guidelines on what data to collect, how much to collect, and to hold the data only as long as necessary. When we shop online, many times we'll see a privacy notice that describes how the site will use our data. However, when you launch an IoT device, you most likely won't see a privacy notice. Because of this, consumers are unaware of what data the company is collecting and how they are using the information. As a result, many analysts believe that we are surrendering privacy bit by bit. Businesses are recognizing the value of integrating IoT products and systems into their infrastructure. However, securing the IoT is different than securing a data center. The IoT will bring challenges of ensuring security and privacy. Businesses and consumers will need reassurance that IoT data will remain unaltered and be accessible only to authorized individuals. Some best practice activities to secure IoT devices includes provide a privacy notice so that consumers understand how their data is being used. Use encryption to protect IoT data. Regularly update the firmware. Implement strong device authentication and access controls, and educate consumers on how to secure. When using IoT devices. In this segment, we'll learn how blockchain and PUF technology can provide a way to secure communication among devices. When IoT devices interact and communicate, we need to be able to trust that unauthorized individuals won't be able to tamper with the application, device, or data. IoT security solutions include physical unclonable functions, or PUFs, and blockchain technology. First, let's talk about PUFs. Physical unclonable functions can provide data integrity, identity management, and authentication. Now, how this works is a device, such as a camera, will generate a PUF, which is a fingerprint of the device. And much like our fingerprints, it uniquely identifies the device. PUF technology works by using a challenge response, which provides proof that the device is authentic. Let's step through the process when using a PUF. Imagine that the client is a camera, as shown on the left, and it needs to upload data to the server, as shown on the right. The client begins by requesting to communicate with the server. The server responds by issuing a challenge. Provide your PUF. The client must return a response that's a match to the actual fingerprint of the device. The server then checks the PUF. When it validates that the PUF is a match, it responds with, "Looks great," and now they can start to communicate. Now let's talk about blockchain technology. Blockchain technology is a tamper-proof, decentralized ledger that allows two or more devices to communicate without using a third party. A blockchain can provide authentication between IoT devices and prevent spoofing. So let's break this down. A blockchain is a chain of blocks that has a couple of key components. A hash value assures integrity. Another fundamental part of blockchain is a digital signature, which uses a private key and a public key. Insecure and have numerous vulnerabilities. In this segment, we'll learn some key considerations in selecting and securing your IoT device to decrease the risk of exposing personal information. IoT devices are designed to help improve our way of life. However, researchers have confirmed that many devices are inherently insecure and are vulnerable to attacks. For example, a large percentage of IoT devices transmit unencrypted data. Here is a seemingly innocent interaction between two people. However, the text is unencrypted and provides the address and that the door is unlocked. Attackers can gather information sent in plain text and then use the information to gain access to networks, homes, or systems. It's essential for individuals and organizations to be aware of the privacy risks associated with IoT devices and then take steps to mitigate the risks. As a result, prior to purchase, select devices with strong security features. Know what data is collected by the IoT device, and make sure you can use access control and encryption protocols. Once you do have your device, you'll want to make sure you use all available security features. This can be overwhelming, so I found a few resources that outline some key considerations in securing your IoT devices. I'm here at the Federal Trade Commission, and the article is Securing Your Internet-Connected Devices at Home. And I'll scroll down. First, you'll want to start with your router, where you'll want to change the default settings and password, enable encryption, and check for updates. After that, it goes into details about how to protect each device. And there's general information. For example, change the default username and password. If possible, use two-factor authentication. Update your device regularly and disable or disconnect to help make it safe to connect to the Internet of Things. In this segment, we'll learn ways the Foundation promotes best practices when developing devices for the IoT. The IoT Security Foundation is a nonprofit international collaboration among the many that are part of the IoT supply chain. That includes vendors, manufacturers, and security professionals that realize security needs to start before the product reaches the production line. The mindset is to build security into an IoT device during the system development lifecycle and include best practices to design a more secure device. Some examples include the following: use encryption to protect communications, enforce strong authentication, promote secure coding, and write application programming interfaces that react in a predictable manner so that it is safe to connect to the device. The Foundation understands the enormous growth in the IoT market and the resultant benefits of a connected society. However, they recognize the responsibility of actively defending against an ever-growing attack surface and the malicious actors that seek to exploit the many IoT vulnerabilities. I'm at the homepage for the IoT Foundation, where the mindset is to make it safe to connect to the IoT. I'll scroll down. Here we can see how this can be possible by implementing best practices, working collaboratively with existing standards, and helping product developers by guiding them through a self-certification process. Now, within the site, we can see the many educational opportunities, security news, and tweets. And this link here will take us to several resources. And I'll open it in a new tab. And we can scroll down. And I've selected this one here, this document, Securing the Internet of Things Supply Chain White Paper. And I'll open it in a new tab. This is on protecting software and hardware assets in supply chains. In this course, we began by outlining how IoT devices generate massive amounts of data that can pose a risk to our privacy. Then we reviewed existing standards and regulations that protect our personal information and discussed the need to provide laws that govern IoT data privacy. Finally, we described methods to select and secure IoT devices. If you're interested in learning more about proactively checking an organization's defenses, please check out my course, Learning Penetration Testing. For a solid overview of security basics, check out my course, IT Security Foundations, Core Concepts. And you really should see what my colleague, Malcolm Shore, has for you on his homepage. Keep learning. I hope to see you again soon.